He's angry. The loud noise of glass splintering made me jump. Zacharias had squeezed the wine glass so tightly that it had shattered in his palm. The strange, viscous wine, mixed with red blood from his palm, stained his white sleeve. He glared at me, unblinking. He did not speak. He did not move. He simply sat still, glaring, as blood and wine flowed down his arm. Hey all you cool creatures, I'm Cryptid, welcome to the Cryptid Plays YouTube channel, and today we are playing A Date with Denial. So I suppose I should be saying we are having a date with Denial, but this game was made for Catskit's 72-hour Murder Boy Mayhem Game Jam of 2023, which I do believe centers around yandere characters. And this one in particular is a spin-off of two other games that are made by the same developer. I've not played the other ones yet, they are still in development, but the love interest is the same. And this will be my first introduction to him. But what this game is about is that you wake up and find yourself on a romantic dinner date with a mysterious man who introduces himself as Zacharias. You have no memory of ever meeting this man or agreeing to go on a date with him. So now you have to figure out what's going on before it's too late. Now, being that this is a game about a yandere love interest, so to speak, there are content warnings that I ought to provide for you, which include blood, fictional depictions of corpses, and it also features a character that manipulates the player. Viewer discretion is advised. So, with that out of the way, let's get started. Well, there we go. There's the warning again. You see, I take the parts that I remember and stitch them back together to make a creature that will do what I say, or love me back. By Richard Silken. His poetry is very good, by the way. I should read more of it. I could smell two distinct smells. The delicious savory smell of food, and the familiar scent of candles burning. I sat up straight and opened my eyes. Are you all right, my darling Muse? My eyes adjusted to the darkness. I like his design. I love his eyes. And his hair. I'm going to assume he's not human. I should definitely check out the developer's information on him at some point. You appear rather bewildered. Was the wine a tad too strong? Who are you? In the dim candlelight, I could see the man's expression shift at the question. There was a brief look of offense and sorrow before he gave me a warm smile. Why, I am Zacharias, of course. We have known each other for quite a while, my Muse. In fact, we were in the middle of a dinner date before you appeared a little disorientated. Zacharias. That name did ring a bell. But as far as I know, I don't remember going on a date with someone by that name. Surely you have not forgotten. To ensure that you are all right, do you still remember your name at least? Yes, I do. I love when, it's like, do you know who you are? Who are you? I always love the different ways that developers, make you put in your name. But yeah, my name is Cryptid. Ooh, I'm gonna go with he, him. That is quite a relief. You do seem to be a little less muddled right now. Perhaps we can continue our lovely dinner date. What? There's 3 endings, I believe, so I'm gonna have to see quite how every answer plays into them. I feel like the answer he wouldn't want is just us looking at the food on our side of the table, so let's do that. Before me, on a large white plate, was my favorite food. Warm steam wafted upwards from it. It seemed that it was just freshly prepared. The smell was delicious. I could feel my stomach rumbling slightly. Beside my plate was a glass of wine, full and untouched. Well, we're just going to continue being curious. Look at the items on the table. The table contained 2 large plates, one before me and the other one before Zacharias, as well as the usual accompanying cutlery. There was a bottle of wine, its label too difficult to read in the flickering candlelight, and a wine glass beside my plate. Zacharias's wine glass was in his hand. I have made sure that your absolute favorite food has been prepared for you. Please, my muse, partake in the meal. Look at the clothes we're wearing. I look down at the clothes I'm wearing. I don't remember owning such expensive-looking formal wear. It was comfortable, however, fitting my form perfectly. I noted that the clothing was the same shade of white and yellow as Zacharias' suit, as far as I could tell in the dim candlelight. There was a fresh flower pinned on the breast of my clothing. Is something the matter? You are not touching your food. There's no stain on your suit, my muse. It is completely spotless and gorgeous. A fitting garment for someone as mesmerizing as you. Look at Zacharias' side of the table. I gazed over to the opposite side of the table where Zacharias sat. His plate, unlike mine, was empty. The glass in his hand was half full. Now and then he did a quick flick of his wrist to swirl the contents in the glass. Take a closer look at his wine glass. I stared at the wine glass in his hand. The liquid seemed a little more viscous than the wine in my glass, and had a darker hue to it. Is he drinking blood? Zacharias noticed that I was staring. He gave his wrist another flick to swirl the contents in his wine glass. The liquid seemed to thin out as he did. Do partake in the wine as well, my muse. Or perhaps, if a strong drink is not to your dietary preference, I can request for the preparations of other drinks to your liking. I don't know if it's right to be suspicious the whole way. I mean, it is. I don't know what the outcome is going to be. Ask him why his plate is empty. Has your food been served yet? Your plate is empty. I have already finished my meal. I apologize, as it must seem rather rude for me not to consume my portions alongside you. But I beseech you to not rush with your meal. Take your time with it, my muse. I will be delighted to simply keep you company. Those teeth are very sharp. I mean, I was noticing them when he smiled, but they really are sharp. His plate is completely clean. Now then, shall I obtain another drink that would be more suited to your taste, my muse? My muse? Ask him why he keeps calling you that. I, really appreciate you getting another drink for me, but why do you keep calling me your muse? Zacharias' eyes widened slightly. You have no recollection of it? I shook my head. He took in a deep breath and sighed, looking a little sorrowful. I am sorry, my Muse. Why are you sorry? However, instead of answering me, he perked up suddenly and gave a grin. I noticed sharp teeth poking out from between his lips. Oh, now we notice. Okay. Do not fret, I will be happy to remind you of such a lovely occasion again. You see, I am an artist, desperately searching for a muse for my crafts. We met, and you agreed to become an inspiration for my paintings and sculptures. Shift your focus upon that canvas. He placed his glass down and snapped his fingers. I suddenly noticed a canvas a small distance behind him that I didn't see before. It was dark there a second ago. It seemed like a light from the ceiling suddenly turned on just to reveal the canvas to me. Upon the canvas was a painting of me, beautiful and shockingly lifelike. I have been painting you before we began to feel rather peckish. I proposed to dine together with you, and you were delighted to accept. He picked up his glass again as he spoke, swirling the liquid within the glass. I suppose one can say that this is our first date. I am honored, elated, to dine with a muse of such charm and beauty as yourself. You flirt. I accept this. I really do. I don't remember any of that. Well, no, I'm pretty sure he's lying, but still. But his deep, mellifluous voice was so soothing, so convincing, that I could not help accepting everything he said. I nodded, not knowing what else to say. Now then, shall I procure a more suitable drink for you, dearest Muse? What would you prefer? Perhaps a fragrant tea? I have no idea if this has an outcome for the ending, but just water. Ah, of course, I shall return swiftly. Do enjoy the meal in the meantime. He stood up, pushing back his chair noiselessly, and strode off somewhere behind me, taking his wine glass with him. His movements were unnaturally graceful, like that of a dancer. Look around you! After he left, I finally began to take note of my surroundings. With him at the table, and especially when he spoke to me, it felt like I had tunnel vision, only able to look at and listen to him. The rest of the world around me seemed to have melted away. But now that he was gone, I could finally bring myself to look around. I seemed to be in a large, rather dark hall. I was startled and amazed to see that two of the walls was a glass wall separating the hall from a massive body of water. The ceiling was also made of glass. I could just see what seemed to be the surface of the water through it. It looked a lot like large aquariums I used to visit as a child, but the water seemed to go on forever. I felt like I was in the middle of the ocean. There were tables similar to ours scattered throughout the hall. It appeared to be some sort of fancy restaurant. The only light in the hall came from the glass walls, as well as the candles on our table and all the tables around ours. The water beyond the glass walls casted a blue, sickly-looking light on everything. I like this choice to wait. I'm absolutely not going to. Stand up and look around. I stood up, slowly moving towards one of the glass walls. As I passed by one of the tables, I noticed that it was empty, even though the candles were lit and the table was set. All of the tables were empty. I was the only one in the hall. I turned my attention to the water on the other side of the glass wall. The water was a greenish blue. It faded away into darkness in the distance. There seemed to be dim light coming from the surface of the water shining down through the ceiling. What seemed to be lotus flowers floated on the surface of the water. There were no leaves or stalks, just flowers. There were no fish of any sort in the aquarium. I could hear a distant noise. A very soft, continuous noise. It came from the water beyond the glass walls. I went closer to the glass walls and listened closely. It was unmistakably the sound of a distant voice singing. The voice was far too distant for me to make out any words. All I could tell was that it was a deep voice. Wait! Is he some... He comes off like an angler... He kind of comes off like an anglerfish, now that I think about it. And it was an absolutely beautiful voice. I found myself standing completely still, one hand pressed on the cold glass wall, only wanting to listen to the voice. If I could, I wanted to break the glass wall to be closer to the voice, so I could hear what it was singing. But I was aware of how foolish that would be. Oh no, which is going to be the worst outcome? Keep listening to the singing. I wanted to pull myself away from the glass wall to get away from the singing, but I found that I could not. It was as if my feet were rooted to the floor and my hand was stuck fast to the glass wall. I could only listen and listen. I began to forget why I was standing there. My eyelids began to grow heavy. I felt my head nodding forward. Suddenly, the singing grew louder, much clearer. I opened my eyes and raised my head. I became aware that the voice was no longer coming from beyond the glass wall, but was now approaching me from behind. I knew it was him. He's some kind of weird creature. He mesmerizes us. Should I have looked at the painting then? Well, whatever. I saved before then anyways. Ah, my muse. The singing stopped, and I could hear Zacharias' familiar voice speak to me. I turned around to see Zacharias standing behind me. In his hand was an ornate glass of water. Were you perhaps searching for me? I am dreadfully sorry for taking so long. He smiled politely, gesturing back towards our table. Come, dine with me. We were about to have a lovely time together. He moved over to his seat, humming cheerfully as he did. Upon hearing his humming, I found myself walking back to the table. I wasn't even aware I was doing it. I simply walked back without thinking. I sat down, absent-mindedly gazing at him. He settled down in his seat and took a sip from his wine glass. It seemed to have reappeared in his hand. I don't recall seeing him bring it back into the hall when he returned with my drink. After you have eaten your fill, we shall continue with the painting. And after that, if you are not too tired, perhaps you can listen to my singing. I wish to compose a song inspired by you, my lovely muse. So perhaps you can help me. Yeah, that sounds nice. Zacharias. Yes, love. Can I... Whoa, the music just got really ominous all of a sudden. Can I ask you some questions? If it would please you, then of course, my dear muse. These clothes, there's something strange about them. What is unusual about your attire, my muse? Oh boy, I remember carrying a backpack before this. That was a while ago. You have changed your attire since then. But why was I carrying a backpack before this? I remember having a backpack with a sleeping bag and candles in it. Where are they? You mentioned that I was disorientated before this. What happened? You simply fell unconscious. I was quite concerned, but unsure of what to do. I am relieved that you awoke after that. How did it happen? I believe it could be the strength of the wine. That is why I suggested to offer you a different drink with less body. Oh boy. Let's see. My wine hasn't been touched at all. Oh dear, we are catching him in this lie. Perhaps I was mistaken about the wine then. Please continue to partake in your meal. It is best to consume it while it is still warm. What is in your wine glass? It looks a bit different from the type in my glass. He gave aside a glance, swirling the drink in his glass again. It is similar. No, it is a different type of wine, with an addition suited to my palate. I do not believe you will enjoy it. You mentioned you finished your food before me. What did you eat? Meat. A dish of the meat variety. A steak. God, I kind of feel bad for him. He seems genuinely like he's attempting to be a decent person to us. Your plate is completely clean. Oh, angry, okay. So he's not embarrassed, he's upset. His expression disturbed me. I could see his left hand trembling slightly as he tightened his grip on his wine glass. That is quite enough questions. I believe we can continue our conversation after the meal. Where are we right now? I've never seen this place before. We are in a lovely restaurant that I have booked prior to our dinner date. Why are we underwater? The restaurant is surrounded by an aquarium. I do enjoy being close to the ocean. That is why I desired for a restaurant that looked like this. An aquarium usually has fish in it. I'm pissing him off. Okay. Fish. Oh, yes. Aquatic life forms. That answer is really sus. I have quite forgotten how do they look again? He seemed very thrown off by my question, glancing around frantically and muttering to himself. Well, that means he couldn't be some kind of aquatic creature. What is he? He seemed very thrown off by my question, glancing around frantically and muttering to himself. I suppose they removed the aquatic life from the tanks for a reason or another. Zacharias had completely lost his usual calm composure. How long have we known each other? As I have mentioned, we have known each other for a while now. However, this is the first time we are dining together. Golly, this is tough. I don't even know what's gonna play into the endings and what's not. No, I entered an abandoned building with 3 other people and met you there. What is he? Is he... He's angry. The loud noise of glass splintering made me jump. Zacharias had squeezed the wine glass so tightly that it had shattered in his palm. The strange, viscous wine, mixed with red blood from his palm, stained his white sleeve. He glared at me, unblinking. He did not speak. He did not move. He simply sat still, glaring, as blood and wine flowed down his arm. I slowly got out of my seat. No, I think we're not escaping this. Still, he did not move, but his eyes never left me. I began to make my way towards the doors of the hall, cautiously turning around again and again to see his reaction. Only his head moved to watch my movements. The rest of his body remained as still as a statue. Damn, he's creepy. Yeah, I dig it, but he is creepy. I pushed open the door slowly. Oh no. At that moment, I heard his chair scraping against the floor, followed by a horrible crash, as if he had thrown the chair at the table. I didn't look back. I just fled through the doors and down the corridor beyond. The corridors seemed to stretch on forever. They twisted and turned, sometimes opening up to large empty halls, sometimes becoming so narrow that I had to squeeze myself through them. Oh, my darling Muse, return to me, my love. Zacharias' voice floated down the corridor, half talking, half singing, sounding beautiful and alluring. We were having such a lovely time. I kept running until... oh boy. They were my friends. The flesh had been stripped off of some parts of them, their limbs torn off, seemingly by sharp fangs. My memories came flooding back in an instant. Ever since we met years ago, we have loved exploring old buildings and abandoned places. We would camp out in the buildings overnight sometimes too, so we would bring candles, some food, and sleeping bags in our backpacks. I recalled that one day we entered a condemned building, shunned even by other groups of people who enjoyed exploring abandoned locations. It started like any other normal exploration, until we noticed that the building seemed far larger than it looked on the outside. Miles upon miles of rooms and corridors. Some empty, some sparsely decorated with old furniture, strange statues, and framed paintings. We could not find our way out no matter how we tried. And then we met him. Zacharias. A strange man dressed in a spotless white suit in the middle of an endless abandoned building. He was singing to himself, standing in the middle of one of the empty rooms. And at that moment, all four of us seemed to forget why we were there. Why we were trying to find our way out. He beckoned us, and we followed him. He offered us food and drink that seemed to have appeared from nowhere. And then he said he wanted to pick one of us to be an inspiration for his next art piece. My memory of what happened after that was hazy, but I recall being separated from my three other friends, sitting in an armchair, watching him paint a portrait of me, enjoying his lovely singing in between his interesting conversations with me, seeing him leave the room and hearing distant screams, but never questioning what they were. As I paused to take in the horror and disgust, I felt two arms wrapping around my waist. I slumped backwards into his warm, tall body, losing all hope. Come, my lovely Muse. Let us continue our dinner date, shall we? Ending 3. Recapture. Okay, so I assume the other endings are going to be us less questioning, more trusting. First and foremost, I'm just going to go back and be very trusting of him. So if we're going to be trusting, let's take a bite of our food. I don't know if the food is even real at this point since we got the bad ending first. Well, bad, I don't think any of the endings are going to be good, but some of them might be a little less horrific. Take a bite of your food. Before me, on a large white plate, was my favorite food. Warm steam wafted upwards from it. The smell was delicious. I could feel my stomach rumbling slightly. I picked up my fork and took a bite of my meal. It tasted incredible, exactly the way I liked it prepared. Let's just keep eating. Eat a bit more. Zechariah smiled as he watched me eat. I don't trust that. Should I trust that smile? I know that he's some kind of monster. It was a warm, loving smile, but it twisted a little more than it should, showing off his surprisingly sharp teeth. I do hope you savor each bite. Do partake in the wine as well, my Muse. Or perhaps if a strong drink is not to your dietary preference, I can request for the preparations of other drinks to your liking. Nah, let's accept the drink. I would like another type of drink, if it's okay. Of course, anything to make you happy, dearest Muse. What would you prefer? Perhaps a fragrant tea? Sure, tea. Ah, of course, I shall return swiftly. Do enjoy the meal in the meantime. He stood up, pushing back his chair noiselessly, and strode off somewhere behind me, taking his wine glass with him. His movements were unnaturally graceful, like that of a dancer. Let's just wait for him. I sat still, staring at the candles on the table. In the distance, I could hear a faint, continuous noise. I listened closely and realized it was the unmistakable sound of distant singing. It was an alluring, deep voice, too distant to hear any exact words, but still sounding almost ethereal. I listened to it silently, finding my eyelids growing a little heavy as I did. It was such a beautiful song. Suddenly, the singing grew louder, much clearer. I opened my eyes and raised my head. I became aware that the voice was no longer coming from beyond the glass wall, but was now approaching me from behind. Ah, my Muse. The singing stopped, and I could hear Zechariah's familiar voice speak to me. I turned around to see Zechariah standing behind me. In his hand was an ornate cup of tea. Were you perhaps searching for me? I am dreadfully sorry for taking so long. He smiled, politely gesturing back towards our table. Come, dine with me. We are about to have a lovely time together. He moved over to his seat, humming cheerfully as he did. Upon hearing his humming, I found myself walking back to the table. I wasn't even aware I was doing it. I simply walked back without thinking. I sat down, absent-mindedly gazing at him. After you have eaten your fill, we shall continue with the painting. And after that, if you are not too tired, perhaps you can listen to my singing. I wish to compose a song inspired by you, my lovely Muse, so perhaps you can help me. Yeah, that sounds nice. I smiled back at him for the first time. He seemed overjoyed to see my smile. His golden eyes lit up, and his toothy grin widened. "Will you stay with me, my muse?" I found myself nodding. Any fear and desire to remember why I was here, how I met Zacharias, and why I wasn't conscious at the table faded away. I was happy to simply continue an eternal dinner date with him. Denial, ending 1, of course. Okay, so it's going to be kind of a mix between the two for the next ending, I assume. So I'm going to start with like looking around, because I feel like not eating is going to be the right course of action to get the second ending. Ask him why his plate is empty. I guess we'll go with that again. Has your food been served yet? Your plate is empty. I have already finished my meal. I apologize, as it must seem rather rude for me to not consume my portions alongside you. But I beseech you not to rush with your meal. Take your time with it, my muse. I will be delighted to simply keep you company. His plate is completely clean. Now then, shall I obtain another drink that would be more suited to your taste, my muse? We're gonna ask him that again, so that we can open up the whole thing about the painting. I really appreciate you getting another drink for me, but why do you keep calling me your muse? Zacharias' eyes widened slightly. You have no recollection of it? I shook my head. He took in a deep breath and sighed, looking a little sorrowful. I'm gonna skip forward a bit. Alright, I'm just gonna go with fruit juice, because this doesn't matter clearly. But I love now that I've made all 3 choices. Ah, of course, I shall return swiftly. Do enjoy the meal in the meantime. Alright, look around. After he left, I finally began to take note of my surroundings. With him at the table, and especially when he spoke to me, it felt like I had tunnel vision, only able to look at and listen to him. The rest of the world around me seemed to have melted away. But now that he was gone, I could finally bring myself to look around. I seemed to be in a large, rather dark hall. I was startled and amazed to see that 2 of the walls was a glass wall separating the hall from a massive body of water. The ceiling was also made of glass. Stand up and look around, I think. I want to look at the painting. I stood up, slowly moving towards one of the glass walls. As I passed by one of the tables, I noticed that it was empty, even though the candles were lit and the table was set. Let's move away from the singing to look at the canvas. After some effort, I managed to move away from the glass wall. I turned to where the canvas stood. The light that once shone down on it has been turned off, but I could still see my portrait in the faint blue glow. Zacharias was very good at painting. I stood before the canvas, admiring the painting, but also thinking, trying to remember. I did recall agreeing to letting him use me as an inspiration for his art, but how did I meet him? I struggled to think. In the back of my mind, hazy and distant, I began to remember empty corridors, empty rooms, empty halls. Miles upon miles of bizarre, empty building, full of mismatching rooms, corridors, and stairs. Seeing him in one such empty location. Accepting his invitation. And then... But what came before that? How did I enter such a place? I closed my eyes, trying hard to think. The singing, while faint and distant, was making it difficult to hold on to any thoughts. 4. There were 4 people. 4 of us. I could not remember the faces of the other three. They were but hazy shadows in my mind. But I remember backpacks, sleeping bags, candles, bottles of water, entering an old building. Suddenly, the singing grew louder, much clearer. I opened my eyes and raised my head. I became aware that the voice was no longer coming from beyond the glass wall, but was now approaching from behind me. Ah, my muse. The singing stopped, and I could hear Zacharias' familiar voice speak to me. I turned around to see Zacharias standing behind me. In his hand was an ornate glass of fruit juice. Were you perhaps searching for me? I am dreadfully sorry for taking so long. He smiled politely, gesturing back towards our table. Come, dine with me. We are about to have a lovely time together. He moved over to his seat, humming cheerfully as he did. After you have eaten your fill, we shall continue with the painting. After that, if you are not too tired, perhaps you can listen to my singing. Yeah, that sounds nice. Zacharias. Yes, love. Can I ask you some questions? If it would please you, then of course, my dear muse. These clothes, there's something strange about them. What is unusual about your attire, my muse? It's the same color as yours. I picked out your clothing to match mine. It felt appropriate for a dinner date, after all. That seemed to make sense. You mentioned that I was disorientated before this. What happened? You simply fell unconscious. I was quite concerned, but unsure of what to do. I'm relieved that you awoke after that. How did it happen? I believe it could be the strength of the wine. That is why I suggested to offer you a different drink with less body. Now, I'm pretty sure I'm on the track to getting the third ending again, but this way I can actually make the other choices. I don't drink at all. There's a first time for everything. You took a rather large sip before mentioning that you did not feel well and fell unconscious. I couldn't deny that. After all, I had no memory of what came before that. Shall we continue with our dining? What is in your wine glass? It looks a bit different from the type in my glass. He gave an aside glance, swirling the drink in his glass again. It is similar, but no, it is a different type of wine, with an addition suited to my palate. I do not believe you will enjoy it. How did you finish your meal so quickly? He gave me a small, sheepish grin. I am a quick eater. I enjoy the taste of meat and finished the dish before you started yours, and before you fell unconscious. I apologize for not waiting for you to start your meal. Now please, enjoy your meal as I have enjoyed mine. Where are we right now? I have never seen this place before. We are in a lovely restaurant that I've booked prior to our dinner date. Why are there no other customers? I suppose there is a low number of clients today. It is quite an exclusive location after all. Okay, I feel like this is going to hinge on what the ending is, but I haven't seen any staff either. You had to get the drink yourself. How long have we known each other? As I have mentioned, we have known each other for a while now. However, this is the first time we are dining together. No, you only painted one portrait of me, so we couldn't have met for long. I believe that is quite enough questions. Perhaps it is time we had a different conversation. One that is less intrusive. But first, you must sleep. Sleep and forget. Sleep and let your fears vanish. He began humming. Sleep, my muse. He sang to me, his voice growing gentle and soothing. Sleep and forget. I felt my eyelids growing heavy despite myself. I could not keep my head lifted up. Forget, and we shall do this all again. Oh no, how long have we been doing this? I felt my head resting on the table. Let us have a lovely date, with no suspicions or fear. My lovely Muse. I could smell two distinct smells. The delicious, savory smell of food and the familiar scent of candles burning. I sat up straight and opened my eyes. Are you all right, my darling Muse? Okay, it is an ending. Loop. Ending 2. Excellent. I think there's only one thing where I didn't get the other choice, so I'm going to go back and get that, but we got all the endings. Okay, I want to ask, how did you afford to book this place? Perhaps it is wiser to not ask your partner how wealthy they are, yes? Okay, that's a good answer. Oh right, this one. I just want to see what his answer is. My food was still steaming hot when I woke up. You were not unconscious for an extended amount of time, I suppose. What is in your wine glass? Okay, so I think that would be it. Cool. Good to know. Well, I guess we got all of the endings. That was A Date with Denial, and it was really good. I had been meaning to play this developer's games for a while, but this was honestly a nice introduction to Zacharias. Before I talk about Zacharias though, I have to mention that the atmosphere was so good. It was creepy, and the whole dinner date was so suspicious. But almost all of that could have been written off as us having our first drink and getting a little too drunk, as Zach said. Although his excuses were definitely suspicious, even for someone who could have been drunk, which the player character clearly was not. The story too, and the way the player character's memories play out of how they got there and met Zacharias were delightfully creepy as well. The fact that the player character and their friends love to explore old abandoned buildings and happen to go into one that was strange beyond comprehension is so good. I just have a love of that sort of horror. Even more so since they all randomly met Zacharias in one of the rooms, and he kind of enchanted all of them into basically listening to him and not being afraid of him. It's just skin-crawlingly creepy in the best way possible. Zacharias himself is incredibly charming. He's suspicious as hell, and he clearly murdered the player character's friends, and probably ate them, but he does seem weirdly sweet. The fact that he doesn't attack the player character when he becomes angry is a really nice change of pace with the yandere trope. He's obsessive and not above harming others, but at least in this spin-off visual novel, he seemed to not want to harm the player character. Of course, some of that is offset with his manipulative powers that make the player character forget and even become somewhat obedient. Perhaps he knows he can attempt to control them before he has to hurt them. Also, his design is so damn good. I am a sucker for strangely colored irises on dark sclera. Although, I may be a bit biased because I definitely have the same thing going on. I also loved his elegant appearance that kind of contrasted with the huge, terrifyingly sharp teeth and odd eyes. He is undoubtedly a very pretty monster, and I have to wonder just what he is. Although I'm pretty sure we'll find out in one of the other visual novels about him that are being developed. So, I will get my answer eventually. I was also really fond of the art for the setting. It looked like a fancy restaurant, but the fact that it was empty and surrounded by just dark, deep water was just so eerie. Honestly, I hope we get a chance to properly explore the building a tiny bit in one of the other 2 visual novels, but it's okay if we don't. I totally get that too. This was overall a really good experience. I had fun with every aspect of it, and I have to admit, I'm excited that I'll get a chance to see more of Zacharias in other games. So, I want to thank you all for watching this video, and I hope that you enjoyed A Date with Denial as much as I did. And if you did like it, please hit that like button. It not only makes me feel good, but it also puts the video into the YouTube algorithm. And if you want to see more of me but you haven't yet subscribed, please subscribe. I upload videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, and sometimes extras and shorts randomly throughout the week. I also stream on Twitch on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Fridays are usually twice a month, but they have been known to be more, and sometimes less. And I hope to see you all next time. Bye!